listening to the Post-Apocalyptic Media Podcast, your weekly post-apocalyptic news roundup.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second podcast spoiler special for The Walking Dead Season 11. This one is for Episode 5, and I'm your host, Sean. I am the senior editor at postapocalyptic.com, and we do this little spoiler special. If you're new here, I have a normal podcast that I do for all of the post-apocalyptic news of the week, and that is over at postapocalyptic.com. And then this here is kind of like a supplement podcast that we do, a little short, supplement for just The Walking Dead. It's just full of spoilers. We decided to break it off from the original podcast because it was, not everybody wants to see spoilers, right? So this is our spoiler special, second episode. If you haven't seen the first one, go back where you came from on the on the site and check out the previous one. This one is for episode 5, which is called Out of the Ashes. So let's get into it. This one, I loved it. We had in episode 4, we had all Daryl, pretty much Daryl and Dog, where he got to meet the Reapers and he got to meet Leia. I want to say Leia. A Star Wars fan in me, Leah, and he gets to meet his long lost love, Leah, and it was a good episode, but it was very limited. And so this one we're kind of going back and checking out everyone else again, Carol's group and Eugene and Yumiko and Princess and Aaron and everyone in these other two major groups, and there's also the Maggie and Negan little group too. So we see these 3 groups basically. And we get to see where they're at during all of this. So episode starts out with Aaron's dream. It's obviously a dream because the background is, it's really kind of vivid. It's very saturated background. So it kind of makes you think, well, this can't be real, right? It's like overly red and the trees and everything. Well, it's definitely a dream. They're not trying to hide that. And so he sees all these different antagonists that he has met, over the years, mainly the Whisperers, also some Reapers, and a lot of zombies, and they're kind of coming at him from all directions while he's trying to protect Gracie, and he's telling him, get back, Gracie, hide behind me and that kind of stuff, and they end up killing him. They just surround him and stab him, and he wakes up. But right when he wakes up, for a split second, they flash on the screen a face that you may remember as May, I think his name was, or Maze, something like that. This is the guy Maze. This is a guy who held Aaron and Gabriel captive last season, I want to say. Maybe it was the season before that, and of course, Maze is played by Robert Patrick, who is T-1000 in Terminator 2. He's the guy that was all chromed out, and when he would... it's so funny thinking about it. It's like 92, I think, when Terminator 2 came out, and the special effects were amazing at that time. And I guess they still hold up. But so basically, he was like liquid chrome, and he would get hurt, and he would just melt onto the floor and then reform as something else. That's Robert Patrick, and he's the guy who plays Maze. So we see his face just for a split second pop up, showing that's kind of, another one of his kind of demons that's in his head. These different demons are tearing at him, and if you remember, Maze died a pretty brutal death. I won't spoil that because that's not what this episode's about. It's a different episode. And so I found that interesting. It's kind of like a flash of one of his last demons there. After that, you see more of the Commonwealth. You see him kind of trying to survive. This is even before the credits start rolling. They show some zombies break through the wall at Alexandria, and they're getting in. Like they breach the wall. They knock down a whole section. They're just coming in, so they're trying to hold him back. And what this represents, it's basically showing that they're in over their head in Alexandria. They're running out of food. They're running out of supplies. And that's the whole reason Maggie and Negan and Daryl and that group went out originally in episode 1 is, they went out to find the, supplies at Meridian. Maggie said, we have supplies at Meridian, let's go get it. And they were thinking there might be supplies at Hilltop too, but we discovered in this episode that there's really not. So yeah, the zombies break through. They're just like, where's Maggie? Where's Negan? Where's that group? Where are our supplies? How we can't do this much longer. And so that kind of laid the groundwork for that. Then we get the credits rolling, and then we get to see, and they go back and forth a lot. So I'm not gonna try not to go back and forth too much. I'll kind of cover, the Commonwealth stuff right now. Commonwealth is Eugene, Ezekiel, Yumiko, and Princess, and they are at the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is kind of like this utopian society, or and anytime there's a utopian society in one of these situations, like on Lost, when in Lost they had the utopian society and it was not utopian. We've seen it before on Walking Dead several times where they've met people who were supposed to be great. They turned out not to be great. So we're waiting for that, basically. Everything seems great so far in the Commonwealth. They watched this this movie from like probably the early 90s, something like that. And it's you can tell it's VHS because it's like the tracking is off and all this stuff that was always fun back then. And you see this guy who talks about he's trying to get people to come to the Commonwealth where everything is beautiful. And later we actually see that guy. I don't know if he's like the mayor or whatever, but we see him later on. And the crazy thing about the Commonwealth is, so we have Eugene saw Stephanie, which we saw a couple episodes back. Stephanie popped up, and Stephanie's that girl who he was talking to over the ham radio, whatever it was, the CB radio. And so she's real. She popped up there. She is. Well, now he's eating ice cream with her. Right? I mean, there's a scene where he's getting ice cream and someone's in front of him and they have Rocky Road. And he goes, "Is that Rocky Road?" And the lady's like, didn't even say anything, just kept walking. So it's just funny that here they are in the apocalypse eating ice cream out of an ice cream truck that I should point out is being led by a horse. It's like a horse-drawn ice cream truck, which is great. Such a great detail. And not only is he, he's eating ice cream with Stephanie, and then there's also a scene where Yumiko she meets her brother Tommy, and he works at a bakery, and there's cakes and there's cupcakes sitting out on the display, and so Yumiko comes in and she sees that and she's like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like, this is the zombie apocalypse. This is incredible. So it's just kind of examples of how they're trying to make the Commonwealth more of an accessible, back before the apocalypse kind of a thing, making people comfortable. But then in the background, you see these stormtroopers. You see the military guys in their white armor, and Mercer walking around in his red armor. I mean, there's still that aspect of it, always in the background. When they're getting ice cream, in the background, there's a guard standing there. So it's always looming. It's always this kind of looming, not threat, but you know what I mean? Like, just a reminder that there's law and order, but as Tommy says, Yumiko's brother Tommy, he says, he wants her to live there. He says, this has been great. I love living in the Commonwealth, but anything is possible as long as you follow the rules. So he's trying to tell her, we can help you here. You can live here. This place is great, but you just got to follow the rules. That's all. And kind of that same thing happens with Eugene. He gets together with Stephanie, who has keys to the communication center, and he's like, "Hey, my people back in Alexandria would love this place. So let's reach out to them and try to get them to come here, or at least talk to them about, how great this place is." So they actually break in. I mean, she has the key. She gets in, but he's using the equipment illegally because he's not really qualified to use it. So he reaches out, and he gets in contact with Alexandria, which is great. But then he gets caught. Mercer and his guys break in the door, and they arrest Eugene, they say, for unlawful use of government property, whatever it was. And he ends up going on trial. Well, not on trial. He goes in front of a guy, and the guy says, okay, well, the worst that's going to happen to you is you're going to get banished from this place. And so Eugene, of course, is a little scared, a little worried about that. He doesn't really, he was just trying to reach out to his friends, but they didn't really like that. So now we see that mayor guy from the video earlier, and he comes up and he says, he kind of pardons them all. He's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about Eugene. He's fine. Let him go. He's not going to be exiled. It'll be fine. His name is Lance, by the way. So Eugene seems like he's going to be fine, but we see that kind of, that little scary bit behind the scenes there with Mercer and his army, his soldiers. Is it? I mean, I know it's foreshadowing, but how bad is it going to be? How bad could it get with this militant side of what seems like a utopia? So we'll see how that goes. Now back to Alexandria. This, like I said before, we have Carol and Aaron and Jerry and Lydia. So Carol, Jerry, Lydia, and Aaron, they go out to Hilltop because, like I said, they're completely out of supplies. So they're kind of, we can't wait for Maggie, so we're going to head out. And we do see a little bit of Maggie. We see her with Negan, and they make it to Meridian. They make it to the spot where the supplies are, and they find supplies. They find food and all this great stuff in these crates. And Negan's like, okay, let's run it back. And Maggie's like, no, we have to stay here. This is the rendezvous spot, and we have to stay here and wait for the others to come. She's waiting for Gabriel and what's that other guy? Elijah, I think the other guy's name is. It's a lot of really biblical names: Ezekiel, Gabriel, Elijah, and so they're waiting for them to come. She doesn't want to leave them behind. Negan's like, screw them. We're gonna, in his Negan way, he's like, we got to get this stuff back to Alexandria. They get in a little fight, little tiff, but right about that time is when Gabriel and Elijah show up, and they're injured, and so Maggie's kind of like, yeah, we can't go. We have to wait for these others. She's waiting for Daryl still. She's waiting for Frost, I think, that one guy, and then. But little does she know that Daryl's kind of making friends with the Reapers, which is crazy. I mean, if she knew that, which we might find out next episode, so we'll see. So that's kind of like it was just a little bit with Maggie and Negan and Gabriel and Elijah. But we know they got the supplies, and we know that they're holding off on bringing them back to Alexandria just yet. So from there, back to Carol and her group. This is kind of the most important part of the whole episode, I think. We have they make it to Hilltop. Hilltop is completely burned. I think it's worse than they expected it because they didn't really realize how badly it was burned. I mean, they burned all the crops. They burned the fields. So everything's done for. And the shambling zombies that are left, just walking around, those are the people they knew before. Those are the people that were their friends, and now they're turned. They're all undead. So they have to put them down. They have to kill their friends, and it's just kind of another piece in the puzzle that's breaking Aaron. Aaron, you can see the breakdown from the dream, and now this, and so while they're sitting there figuring all this out, they see all these zombies kind of walking in the distance in one direction. They're kind of all being led in one direction. And they're like, should we go put them down? They're like, wait a minute. I think they're being herded. If you remember in the last season, the Whisperers herded zombies. They would walk amongst the zombies so that they could, they put the masks on and everything. And they did this so they could walk around safely while being protected by these zombies. So they Lydia figured it out. Lydia was a Whisperer before. She's like, those they're being herded. There's got to be a whisperer in there. So they run over there. They take down a bunch of zombies, and then they see this guy. This is it was funny. It was comical to me. The whisperer who's still trying to act like a zombie, like he's, shambling, but he's kind of shambling a little faster. He's like, oh, they see me. Oh. And so they run up to him. They take his mask off. They push him down. His name is Keith. He says his name is Keith. And he swears up and down. He says, I don't know any other whisperers. It's just me. I'm just trying to survive here. And I just wanted to be in with these zombies. Of course, they don't believe him. But he swears up and down. He swears he hasn't seen any other whisperers. He hasn't seen any other people. He's just trying to survive. Well, then they make it into this nearby house, and there's all these other whisperers in there. But they're all just kind of hanging out, and they're not really like fighters. They're kind of just, they look really weak, and they're kind of cowering in the corner. And they're like, wow, you just lied to us, dude. So what else are you lying about? And then to make things worse, they try to make a move to stab Aaron. And Keith gets a knife and he slashes at him and just misses his stomach. And so it's not looking good for old Keith and his whisperer friends. They all escape. They run out, but they grab Keith again. They tie him up. They have him hanging up by his arms, or I guess his shoulders. And Jerry's holding a rope, and so Aaron takes a zombie on a rope and he holds him toward Keith, and he's kind of using him as torture. He's like, if you don't talk, I'm going to let him go, and he's going to bite you. And Keith's like, I don't know anything else, I swear. Well, we've heard that before from Keith, right? So Aaron is getting really mad. Like, he's getting really, really mad. So he lets the zombie bite him. Well, the first time he bites just his jacket, and then he comes by and he lets him bite his fingers the second time. And so now he's infected. And Aaron's basically like, look, let us know so I can cut off your arm and you can still be saved. You won't turn. You won't have an arm. But, look at Aaron. He did pretty good. And he has a big spiked ball on his hand after that. So maybe he wants a companion, a ball spike companion. So he says, look, I can cut your arm off and you won't be, infected. Just tell me what I want to know. Just tell me what's going on. Tell me where the other whisperers are. What's going on? And the others kind of watch. Lydia gets a little upset because she knew the guy before. She doesn't like the way Aaron is really just yelling at this guy, really just getting in his face and getting the zombie to bite his fingers. And the guy keeps saying, I don't know. I swear I don't know anymore. And then it gets to the point where you can tell Aaron's kind of losing control, of the situation. He's getting really just vindictive and mad, and he's letting that kind of take over his emotions. So Carol puts the zombie down that he's been using as a little bait, as a little weapon against Keith. Carol shoots him in the head, the zombie. It falls. Aaron screams at her, and then Carol's like, look, I was in the same situation. I understand what you're going through right now. I was like that with Alpha. Alpha was the leader of the Whisperers before. And she says, look, you're going down a path that you don't want to go down. This is exactly what she said. She said, this is a path you don't want to go down. And it kind of shows Carol's maturity. She realizes that she lost it when she was going after Alpha. And now she's different. She's more reserved. She understands that a lot of that's not worth it. Because what happens when you kind of go over the top with getting back at the bad guys? You turn into the bad guy, right? That's kind of a thing that happens. So she's telling him, don't become a bad guy. Don't keep going after this. Well, it pays off for Aaron and the whole group later. When they have Keith, he gave Keith a knife and he said, you can cut off your own hand or I can cut it off for you. Whatever way, you can save yourself from turning. So he cuts off his own hand, because we see him later with a bandage over his little stumpy arm right there. And he says, hey, by the way, I know where one of your people are. When the cave collapsed during the Whisper battle, there was a lady who was in the cave, and we know that was Connie. Kelly's mother or friend? I forgot exactly, because they're new characters, and I kind of forgot what was going on there. But Connie was she was trapped in that cave, and we thought she was dead, but then we found out later she wasn't. Well, she's okay, and so Keith is saying, I know where she's at, and like Jerry says to Aaron, he says, well, it's a good thing you didn't kill this guy, because now we know where Connie is and we can save her. And that's pretty much the end of the episode, but we see a little bit of a trailer for next episode, which will be episode 6. And in that one, we see Connie being held captive. She's with Virgil, and there's this crazy, so she's looking through this peephole thing, and there's this eye that stares back at her, and it's all yellow. The whites of the eyes are actually yellow, and the eye looks really big. It's pretty freaky. And on IMDb, they call them creatures, mysterious creatures. So we get to see what that is. It's probably just, what do they call that? Jaundiced, I guess, when your eye is yellow. So we'll see who that is and what's going on there. But she's being held captive. So we get to see her side of the story. Then we'll also see more from Daryl and Leah as they bring the Reapers. It looks like, from what I saw, it looks like they're bringing the Reapers back to maybe Alexandria, where maybe they're coming to help them. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like it's help. It looks like they're kind of butting heads a little bit, so we'll see how that goes. Other than that, I mean, that's the episode, and that's basically what we can expect in next episode too. So from here, we have we know where things are tying up with as far as all the groups. We know that next week we're going to tie Daryl's group together back with, the main groups like that. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be, how are people going to react when they see Daryl running around with Leah? Leah's group, the Reapers, just murdered a bunch of people from Maggie's group. There's only so many times Maggie can forgive people who kill the ones she loves, right? It's getting a little ridiculous at this point. So I don't know how that's going to play out. We still have this is episode 5. We still have, a good handful of these episodes left. And I think I've mentioned this before, but there's going to be chunks. So we're going to have only a couple more before there's a break. And then they're going to do another chunk. I think it's supposed to be 3 groups, another chunk, and then a break, and then another chunk. So this is going to take us into far into 2022. So yeah, it'll be drawn out, and the most intense stuff is going to happen right at the end, and we're all going to be screaming at our TVs. But that's how it goes. So that's about it for this episode. For if you want to read more about my complete write-up on this episode, it's over at postapocalyptic.com. We also have all of the social media stuff, and I'll be doing this every week. So I'll be doing not only the recording, but also the write-up itself after each episode. And these are the AMC Plus, early access ones, I guess you could say. So the ones on AMC Plus, we're getting a week before. It's actually airing the same time as the normal one. So 5 here aired at the same time as 4 for everyone else. So you're basically getting it a week in advance. So you don't even have to get AMC Plus. So all you have to do is, listen to this podcast and read my write-ups, right? Takes care of everything. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.